Audiobook. Don't let your day be just another day. Chapter 1. The traces left by any given day. You wake up on an ordinary Monday. The alarm clock rings. The dawn light filters through the curtains. You look at the clock with sleepy eyes, check your phone without real interest, and wake up on automatic, like a character trapped in a script they didn't write. The bitter coffee burns your throat, but you don't even notice it. You step outside, ready to face the routine, convinced that today will be the same as yesterday, tomorrow, and forever. But what if I told you that this seemingly ordinary day is an opportunity that will never return? That if you let it pass without purpose, you'll be missing something irretrievable. Thus begins this story, with a simple but devastating truth. Every day is a life in miniature. Each dawn unfolds before you a blank canvas, ready to be filled with colors or shadows. Yet, how many of us see it that way? Most of us run on an endless cycle of repetition, waiting for that perfect moment when we will finally begin to live. But that mythical moment doesn't exist. Or rather, it's already here. Now, at this very second. This story isn't about epic feats or monumental achievements. No, it's about the quiet power of the small, the everyday, those seemingly insignificant decisions that, when repeated day after day, build a meaningful existence or slowly erode it. One man, after years of guiding thousands, understood something essential. What matters is not how long you live, but what you do with the time you have. Thus was born a clear, powerful, and profoundly practical philosophy of life. If every day counts, then every action, every word, every moment must too. And the most revealing thing of all is that you don't need money, fame, or luck to apply it. Just one thing: the decision to live with intention. Because when you do, the world transforms. Suddenly, you see opportunities where before there was only routine. You understand that even dull days have value, that every conversation can be meaningful, that your time isn't meant to be filled with things, but with meaning. This isn't a narrative of pretty phrases. It's a call to wake up, to shake yourself up, to remind yourself that you are in control of how your day will turn out, that what happened yesterday or the uncertainty of tomorrow doesn't matter. What you have today is power, and if you make this day count, you will have begun to change your life without even realizing it. Because when night falls, the crucial question is not, what did you do, but did you make it worthwhile? And just when you think you've got it figured out, something deeper emerges, a mystery that reveals the true essence of everything. How do you build a day that truly matters? The word intention may sound abstract, right? Like a pretty concept to frame on the wall, but useless in the midst of traffic, stress, and fatigue. However, intention isn't an ornament. It's a compass, and those without it are adrift. Have you ever felt like this? As if you were doing 1,000 things, but none of them fulfilled you. As if the days were busy, yet empty. That weight in your chest, that feeling of running without moving forward, is the clearest sign that you're living without purpose. Living with intention is choosing every morning what kind of person you want to be and acting accordingly. It's not about planning every minute or controlling the uncontrollable, but about having clarity. Because clarity is the foundation of a meaningful life. If you don't know what you're looking for, how will you know when you find it? In this story, the transformation begins there, at that moment when an ordinary person, like you, like me, realizes they can no longer operate on autopilot. That every wasted day is a broken promise. And they decide to change, not the world, but their way of inhabiting it. The first step is simple, yet revolutionary. Stop. Take a deep breath. And ask yourself, with brutal honesty, what do I want this day to represent? Because what's crucial isn't what you do, but why you do it. When you act with intention, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the author of your own story. Maybe you can't change your boss, your prices, or your past, but you can change your attitude. Decide whether today you'll react as usual or respond with purpose. Whether you'll spend the day complaining or building. Whether you'll go with the flow or row wherever you choose. And grand gestures aren't necessary. Sometimes, the intention is hidden in the smallest things, in truly listening, in a sincere, thank you, in finishing what you started, in giving yourself a moment of silence. These small actions, repeated, are seeds that ultimately transform your life. Remember, you can't live a meaningful life if your days aren't meaningful. And your days won't be meaningful if you're not present, if you don't live them with your eyes open. Now that you know, the question is inevitable. Will you take control of your day, or will you continue to let it slip through your fingers like sand? But this is just the beginning, because living with intention is only the first pillar. The next step, deeper, more urgent, is to discover your true motivation. And that is another story. Chapter 2. Discover your purpose, and the answers will come on their own. There's a question many people prefer to avoid, but sooner or later we all must honestly face it. Why do you do what you do every day? Stop for a moment and reflect. Every morning you wake up, fulfill your responsibilities, work, survive. But why? What's the real meaning behind that daily routine that seems to repeat itself endlessly? When that why isn't clear, the burden becomes heavier, the fatigue deeper, and each problem seems more difficult to bear. Routine, without purpose, can become an invisible prison. But when that why exists and is solid, even the most exhausting days find a spark of energy. There is direction even amidst the chaos, and life takes on a new dimension. The story we're exploring teaches us a great truth. It's not necessarily the smartest, the most prepared, or the luckiest who make their days count, but rather those who have a clear reason for getting up every morning. A reason that goes beyond a salary, an obligation, or what others expect of them. And the most admirable thing is that this why doesn't need to be grandiose or revolutionary. It can be as simple as the desire to be a good example for your children, to build something that will leave a mark, or simply to prove to yourself that you're capable. The essential thing is that this motive is genuine, that it belongs completely to you, that it touches your soul and drives you from within. When you find your why, Mondays no longer feel like a punishment. The most monotonous tasks cease to be torture because now you know they're part of something bigger. They're aligned with a vision, a personal cause, a dream that inspires you. Think of someone who works long hours in a job they aren't passionate about. If they lack purpose, frustration will be inevitable. But if they remember that they're doing it to provide their daughter with an education, suddenly that day takes on new meaning. It's no longer just about doing a job, it becomes an act of love. If you feel like your life is stagnant, that the days drag on, and your spirits are down, maybe you're not burned out. Maybe you're just disconnected from your purpose. True motivation doesn't come from the outside, but rather springs from deep within when you ask yourself, what's so important to me that it would make this day worthwhile? That's where the transformation begins. Because whoever finds their why stops surviving and begins living with meaning. You already have two fundamental pieces of the puzzle, living with intention and knowing why you do it. But there's still a third missing, a silent and powerful key. What are you willing to invest to achieve it? Let's talk then about something that we all possess, but few know how to value: time. Your time is your life. Don't give it away thoughtlessly. That silent companion moves forward without stopping, without asking permission, without turning back. We use it without realizing it. We lose it in distractions. We postpone it for a later that sometimes never comes. But there is one compelling truth. Your time is your life. What you do with your hours is, in essence, what you are doing with your existence. It's that simple. It's that real. And yet, how often do we act as if we have an infinite supply of days? How many times do we put off important things with phrases like, "I'll start tomorrow," "I'll do it later," or "when I have time"? The truth is, we are not eternal, and we know it. The story we are living shakes us with a simple but powerful revelation. Every minute counts, because every minute is part of you. When you spend your time on activities that don't bring you closer to what truly matters to you, you're giving away fragments of your life. It's not about living in a hurry, but with awareness. Because not all minutes have the same value. An hour of aimlessly watching television isn't the same as an hour of deep conversation with someone you love. An afternoon spent browsing social media isn't the same as an afternoon spent building a dream, learning something new, or helping someone in need. And this isn't about extreme productivity, but about true priorities. Time isn't managed with electronic planners or sophisticated apps. It's managed with clarity. When you know what truly matters, you learn to say yes with conviction and no without guilt. One of the most revealing moments in this story occurs when the protagonist realizes that he can't control how many years he'll live, but he can decide what he'll do with the day before him. And in that instant, he stops feeling like a slave to the clock and becomes the master of his own time. Ask yourself this question right now. What are you investing your most valuable asset in? Your time. Be honest with yourself, because every time you choose to spend your time on something meaningless, you're telling yourself that it's worth more than your own life. And you are worth more. Much more. Therefore, if you want a life of purpose, you must first learn to treat your time as you would a treasure, because that is, in reality, the greatest of treasures. But there's something we often overlook. What happens when we invest our time in something important and still don't see immediate results? That's where an even more decisive force comes into play: consistency. And we'll talk about that in the next part. Because finding your purpose and protecting your time is just the beginning. What makes the difference is the ability to stay steadfast, day after day, on the path you've chosen. Chapter 3. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated every day. There are people who begin with overwhelming enthusiasm. They buy a new notebook, make meticulous lists, fill their days with motivation and renewed dreams. Everything seems possible at first. However, as the weeks pass, that initial fervor dissipates, and many end up giving up. They do so not out of a lack of desire to improve themselves or out of weakness, but because they have not yet understood an essential truth that transforms everything. Starting well is not enough. What really matters is staying on track. Consistency is a silent force. It doesn't command attention or seek the spotlight. In fact, it often seems boring, even monotonous. But it is, without a doubt, the foundation of everything worthwhile. Its fruits aren't reaped in a single day. They are revealed over time, in what you become after months or years of repeating valuable actions. Being consistent is an art, the art of continuing, even when no one applauds, when the results seem invisible, when you feel like you're moving forward alone and the world doesn't notice your efforts. In this story, the protagonist experienced it firsthand. There were times when doubt invaded him. He felt like nothing was changing, that his efforts were in vain, and he considered giving up. But every time he chose to get up, every time he tried despite his exhaustion, the next day offered him a different light, renewed strength, a small achievement that became his. Therein lies the true secret of success, not in one heroic and spectacular act, but in thousands of small, everyday actions that you choose not to abandon. Consistency is doing what you know you must do, even when the desire doesn't appear. It's showing up every day, repeating, learning, correcting, adjusting, and continuing. Of course, there will be difficult days, moments when everything seems stagnant, days when you question whether it's really worth it. But it's precisely in those moments that character is forged, when your decisions are affirmed, when your purpose is strengthened. Anyone can get off to a good start. The real value is sustaining that momentum when enthusiasm fades. Only those who persist reach the goal. And consistency gives you something invaluable: self-belief. Because when you do what you said you would do, over and over again, you begin to trust yourself. Your self-esteem rises, your focus sharpens, and your life stops being a series of scattered attempts and becomes a solid, step-by-step construction. Have you ever stopped to think about what you could accomplish if you were consistent for a year? Or even for just 30 days? You don't need to run or take giant leaps. You just need to keep going. And if at any point you feel like you're lacking strength, remember this: you're not alone. Everyone who has achieved something significant has faced the urge to give up and didn't. You too can choose to keep going. Now that you know the transformative power of consistency, a new question arises. What are you feeding your mind to keep that commitment alive? Because there's one essential ingredient that can either strengthen or, on the contrary, sabotage your daily progress: your attitude. Attitude is everything. It's how your mind shapes your reality. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror. What do you really see? Not just your physical reflection, but also the manifestation of your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions. Is this an open and positive attitude, or one dominated by doubt, exhaustion, and frustration? Although intangible, attitude transforms everything. It's the lens through which you perceive the world. If you choose a negative attitude, you'll find obstacles around every corner. If you choose a positive attitude, you'll discover opportunities where you once saw only difficulties. The story we're following makes it clear. Without the right attitude, neither the best intentions, nor the strongest perseverance, nor even the noblest purpose will take you far. Because a negative attitude becomes an invisible barrier that sabotages your steps. Doubts, fears, and insecurities begin to rise like silent walls. But when you decide to transform your attitude, you also decide how you will live each day. And then you understand that attitude is not something you are born with, nor a gift of destiny. It is a conscious choice, a choice that doesn't depend on what happens outside, but on what you cultivate within yourself. You may be surrounded by difficulties, but if your attitude is one of gratitude, resilience, and strong will, those challenges become scenarios for growth, not reasons to stop. It's not about feigning optimism or denying difficulties. It's about adopting a realistic but firm attitude, an attitude of faith in your abilities, confident that, even if the road is arduous, you will continue moving forward. Attitude isn't about ignoring problems, but rather facing them with a mindset that drives you to overcome them. Did you know that two people can go through the exact same circumstances and experience completely different outcomes? It all depends on how they choose to interpret them. What may be a failure for one person may be a priceless lesson for another. What may be an obstacle for one person may be the beginning of a new opportunity for another. In this process, your attitude becomes the energy that fuels your purpose. And it doesn't matter how many times you fall, because if your attitude is right, you'll always get back up stronger, wiser, and more determined. It's much more than simply thinking positively. It's the profound decision not to give up, no matter what happens. Attitude, then, becomes your shield and also your sword. It allows you to take control of your life, your days, your choices. And when you adopt an active, positive, and determined attitude, the world begins to respond to you. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you are ready to face it. So today, ask yourself a simple but powerful question. What attitude are you choosing to have? And as you reflect on this, brace yourself, because in the next part, we'll discover something equally crucial to sustaining this path. How our relationships and the support of those around us can become fundamental pillars that help us stay strong, especially in times when we feel we might falter. Chapter 4. The bonds you create are the energy that fuels your destiny. You may be a disciplined person with an unwavering attitude and a clear vision of your goals. But without the right people by your side, the path becomes more arduous. Relationships are the foundation that sustains your days, the drive that maintains your focus, and the spark that rekindles your determination when everything seems to be falling apart. Reflect for a moment. Think about those you deeply admire. Are they loners, or are they surrounded by those who support, motivate, and challenge them? Those who achieve success, not just materially, but also in the art of living with purpose, share an essential trait: they don't advance alone. The story we explore today reveals how relationships can accelerate your progress, becoming the wind that pushes your sails toward deeper waters. The protagonist of this story not only sought companionship, but cultivated connections with those who shared his vision, his values, and, above all, his thirst for growth. It wasn't about accumulating friends, but about forging meaningful bonds. Because true relationships aren't those that merely applaud your triumphs or repeat what you want to hear. They're those that confront you when you stray, those that lend a hand when you fall, but also demand that you get back up. Often, these people become the wisest guides, but herein lies the secret. A relationship isn't a one-way street. True magic comes from the balance between giving and receiving. If you only look for what others can do for you, you'll miss out on one of the greatest blessings of human connection, mutual growth. So, if you want to make every day count, invest in the relationships that truly add up. Strive to surround yourself with those who challenge, inspire, and uplift you. And at the same time, be that same pillar for them, not only in the bright moments, but also in the dark ones. After all, life isn't measured solely by what you accomplish alone, but by what you build together. However, there's a crucial caveat. Not all relationships will bring you closer to your purpose. Some can become distractions or even anchors that hinder your progress. Therefore, it's vital to learn to discern and filter out those relationships that don't contribute to your evolution. So ask yourself, are the people you spend time with helping you become the best version of yourself? The environment, the silent stage of your success. Imagine waking up every morning in a space that inspires, organized, bright, filled with colors and elements that inspire your motivation. A place that invites you to take action and reminds you, in every detail, of what you yearn to achieve. Now, imagine the opposite. A chaotic, gloomy environment, saturated with noise and clutter, where nothing reflects your dreams or values. How would that feel? The reality is that your environment, physical and emotional, profoundly shapes your actions. Successful people not only take care of their mindset and relationships, they also consciously cultivate the space around them. Everything you see, hear, and touch filters into your mind and sets the tone for your days. In the story we follow, the protagonist realized that while he couldn't control everything in his life, he did have power over what he allowed in his environment. He transformed his workplace into a sanctuary of energy and creativity, eliminating distractions and adding elements that propelled him. But he went further. He built a positive mental environment. He surrounded his thoughts with ideas that would bring him closer to his goals, because the environment isn't limited to the tangible. It's also the landscape of your mind. If it's filled with doubts, fears, or negativity, your decisions will be affected. If you consume content that undermines your self-esteem or allow criticism to define you, your inner world becomes poisoned. The key is to create an environment that uplifts you, no matter the circumstances. This doesn't require moving to paradise or chasing perfection. It's enough to start with small changes. Organize your space, eliminate unnecessary things, and add things that remind you of your purpose. On an emotional level, choose to surround yourself with. Chapter 5. When there is nothing left. There are times in life when everything seems to fall apart. You lose that opportunity you took for granted, someone you trusted deeply lets you down, or perhaps a project you poured your heart and soul into fails miserably. In those moments, the world seems to stop. You feel like nothing makes sense, that all your effort has been in vain, and the weight of frustration threatens to crush you. However, it is precisely there, at that breaking point where the soul trembles and hope fades, that a crossroads opens. You have two paths before you: surrender or grow. Difficulties aren't anomalies on life's journey. They're an essential part of it. The problem is that many people interpret them as the end of everything, when in reality they're the beginning of a new stage, a turning point. In the story we follow, the protagonist went through one of those defining moments, a painful loss, a dream that crumbled like a sandcastle. The temptation to abandon everything was strong, almost irresistible. And yet, he didn't. No one would have blamed him if he had given up, but deep down, he understood a life-changing truth. Life's trials don't come to destroy you. They come to shape you. Every obstacle hides an opportunity in disguise. It may sound like a trite phrase, but it's a reality revealed only to those who persevere. It's in pain that empathy is born. It's in failure that you discover what works and what doesn't. It's in loss that you learn to value what's truly important. And it's in the darkest moments that the spark of resilience begins to ignite. The protagonist didn't just get up. He rebuilt himself from within. He cried, yes. He doubted. He fell many times. But with each fall, he learned something, a seed of wisdom. He didn't just learn to stand up. He learned to do so with more strength, with more awareness, with more compassion for himself and others. Because that's what life is about. not avoiding problems, but facing them with purpose. Facing them head-on and firmly saying, I'm going to overcome this too. And when you dare to do so, something changes inside you. Life stops seeming like a constant threat and becomes a training ground for your greatness. Maybe you, too, are going through a difficult time. Perhaps you feel like your efforts aren't bearing fruit, that you're not moving forward, that you're alone in the midst of a seemingly endless storm. But listen carefully. Your pain isn't eternal. It's just part of the process, another step along the way. And even if you don't see it clearly right now, what you're experiencing can become the impetus that takes you further than you ever imagined. It's not about denying difficulty. It's about using it as a springboard. Every time you choose to endure, you grow stronger. Every time you choose to continue, your character is forged. And every time you refuse to give up, life rewards you with growth. So ask yourself, what will you do with the pain you're facing? Will you let it break you? Or will you use it as a foundation to build a stronger you? And this is where an element as powerful as it is forgotten comes into play: gratitude. Gratitude has the ability to transform pain into purpose. Imagine you're in the middle of an emotional storm. You've lost something precious. You've made mistakes. You're exhausted inside. Everything seems to be going against you. But even so, you choose to stop for a moment. You take a deep breath and say, thank you. Not because everything is okay, but because, despite everything, you're still here. Because within you, there still beats a strength that won't give up. Because, even when everything seems to be falling apart, there's always something, no matter how small, for which you can be thankful. Gratitude is a courageous act in the midst of difficulty. It's observing your life with all its ups and downs, and still choosing to focus on what you have instead of what's missing. It's recognizing that, even if it hurts, there are reasons to continue. People who love you, moments that inspire you, lessons that have shaped you. In our story, the protagonist experienced a profound transformation when he began to intentionally practice gratitude. It wasn't a magical or immediate change, but a daily choice. He began each morning by writing down 3 things he was grateful for. At first, it was difficult. His mind was trained to focus on the negative. But little by little, what had previously been automatic complaints became conscious appreciations. What had once frustrated him now taught him. What had once seemed scarce now seemed abundant. Gratitude didn't change your circumstances. It changed your perspective on them. And that's what gratitude does. It grounds you, restores your focus, and reminds you that even if you don't have everything you want, you probably have more than you thought. It's a practice that connects you to life from a deeper, more present, and more human place. When you give thanks, fear dissipates, anxiety lessens, and your mind clears. Because you can't feel sincere gratitude and simultaneously feel like a victim. Gratitude gives you back your power. It reminds you that your life isn't simply a succession of events, but an experience you can embrace, even in the midst of pain. Sometimes being grateful is hard, but that's precisely what gives it its power. It's an act of resistance. It's like saying to life, I'm not going to focus only on what I lack. I'm going to value what I have and build from there. Take a moment right now. Breathe. Think. What could you be grateful for today, just as you are, right where you are? And in the next part, we'll talk about a topic we often put off, without realizing its profound importance. The legacy you're building, day after day, without being fully aware of it. Chapter 6. You are leaving a mark on the world with every step, even if you don't notice it. When we think of the word legacy, our minds often turn to renowned historical figures, visionary leaders, bold inventors, immortal artists, people who have left an indelible mark on the world. However, we often forget a profound and powerful truth. You, too, are leaving a legacy right now. Every day you live, every decision you make, every word you speak, every glance, gesture, or even every mistake weaves the story of your life. And that story doesn't stay locked inside you. It projects itself out into the world, leaving an imprint on those around you. You may not realize it, but there's always someone watching. Maybe it's your child, a close friend, a coworker, or even a stranger you shared a few minutes with. The truth is, the way you live has a much greater impact than you imagine. At this stage of our story, the protagonist faces a sincere and necessary reflection. He asks himself what image he's leaving behind. What would people remember of him if everything ended today? Not as a tragedy, but as an act of profound honesty with himself. He pauses to consider whether he's living up to the values he claims to uphold, whether his actions are building something that inspires, that contributes, that endures over time. Because leaving a legacy doesn't mean perfection or fame. Rather, it's about living with intention, acting with consistency. It means understanding that what you do with your life doesn't die with you, but continues, transforming into influence, inspiration, and memory. Sometimes, a legacy is hidden in a simple word that changes someone's course, in an act of kindness that is never forgotten, in an enlightening piece of advice, in a sincere apology, or in a difficult decision made with courage and integrity. All of these leave a mark. All of these build something greater than oneself. And the most revealing thing about all this is that you don't have to wait for success to start leaving a positive mark. Your legacy is written in the present, with every small choice you make, even when no one is looking. It's in those moments when you choose to be honest, when you choose to serve, when you lift up someone who has fallen. In those moments, you are leaving something valuable that transcends. Our protagonist understood that he didn't want to be remembered solely for his achievements or goals, but for how he made people feel, for how he lived with purpose, for how he turned every day into an opportunity to build something meaningful, not only for himself, but also for those who accompanied him along the way. This understanding led him to adjust his course. He began to act with greater intention, to build not just an externally successful life, but a life with meaning, with soul. And now it's your turn. Reflect for a moment. What mark are you leaving on those around you today? What story will be told about you when you're no longer around? In the next part, we'll explore how small acts, those we often underestimate, are actually the foundation of a life worth living. Because small ceases to be small when it is made with love. For a long time, our protagonist thought that making a difference meant achieving great things, impressive speeches, ambitious goals, public recognition. But one day, while talking to an old man in a park, he heard a simple phrase that moved his heart. You don't need to do extraordinary things. Just do the ordinary with an extraordinary heart. That phrase became a melody that accompanied him for days. And little by little, he began to notice everything that had previously gone unnoticed. The smile he offered a stranger, an unexpected call to a loved one, the silent gesture of listening attentively. Humble details, invisible to public applause, but immensely powerful to those who received them. He understood that the everyday had an unsuspected depth, that the seemingly insignificant had a real impact. In fact, he understood that life is made up of small actions repeated with love and consistency. A timely thank you can heal an emotional wound. And I'm listening can save a relationship. And I'm here can turn a dull day into a bright one. And when these actions are done with a generous heart, they become bridges that connect souls. That's how he began to live, with his eyes open to the simple, with his soul open to the essential. The most curious thing was that by changing his perspective, his daily experience also changed. What had previously seemed routine took on a new dimension. Preparing breakfast for his family became an act of love. Organizing his surroundings became a gesture of self-respect. Greeting the building's doorman ceased to be a formality and transformed into a message that said, "You are important too." And so he discovered that true greatness is not measured by the number of applause one receives, but by the number of people who feel valued after meeting you. And this is a truth you can apply starting today. You don't need to have all the answers or wait for the perfect moment. Every day, in the midst of routine, you have the opportunity to sow something good. And the most beautiful thing of all is that when you sow in others, you also blossom within. The impact is in the details, in making others feel seen, heard, and valued. It's about choosing kindness over haste. It's about giving without expectations. It's about building relationships from a place of mindfulness. That's how you weave a life that truly matters. Ask yourself a sincere question. What small act can you do today that will leave a big impact? Because in the next part, we'll explore something that can elevate everything you do to an even deeper level. The importance of living with focus and clarity of purpose. Chapter 7. Wake up every day with focus and meaning. In a world where days slip away between unanswered emails, endless commitments, and tight routines that barely leave room to breathe, many people live without pausing to think about why they do what they do. Have you ever wondered where you're really going? What's the point of that constant rush? The protagonist of this story, after multiple setbacks, days of light and others tinged with darkness, came to face a concern that had accompanied him for a long time, almost like a silent shadow. One afternoon, in the midst of that daily whirlwind, he asked himself a question that would change his life forever. Am I living a life worth living, or am I just reacting to what's happening? That reflection led him to discover a profound truth. Living without purpose is like sailing a ship without a rudder. You can float, even move forward a little, but you won't reach any real destination. Purpose is that silent compass that allows us to firmly say yes to what truly matters and serenely say no to what doesn't belong to us. And the most surprising thing is that you don't need an epic mission or the desire to change the entire world to live with meaning. Purpose isn't the privilege of a few. It's closer than you imagine. Sometimes it's found in being a present parent, in helping others discover their best version, in using your talents to serve, in lending a helping hand to those who come after you. The important thing is to live with intention, not in a hurry. Let your days be guided by what you truly value, not just by the urgency of the moment. When you find that direction, everything changes. Daily tasks stop feeling like heavy burdens and become genuine expressions of your personal mission. This is how the protagonist began to make more conscious decisions. He stopped wasting his time on things that didn't add up and chose to prioritize what was aligned with his deepest purpose. And in that process, something extraordinary happened. His life began to gain depth, peace, and meaning. Not because everything was perfect, but because every step he took brought him closer to a truly worthwhile goal. And you, who are reading this, can do it too. Today you can decide to leave behind the automatic routine and begin to live with clarity. You can ask yourself powerful questions. What do I want to build with my life? What legacy do I wish to leave? What ignites me inside? Don't resign yourself to simply surviving. Don't simply accept the idea that this is life. You have a calling. There is a reason you are here. And when you discover that reason, your days become constant opportunities to move forward with intention. In the next part of this inner journey, we will delve even deeper into an invisible but powerful force, capable of sustaining you both on radiant days and on those when everything seems to stand still. Faith in something greater than yourself. There are times when, no matter how hard you try, things don't turn out the way you expected. You try your hardest, you do everything in your power, and still, the answers don't come. The path becomes blurred, uncertain. And in that void that appears, it's easy to lose motivation. It was at such a stage that the protagonist found himself. He had goals, he had direction, but it seemed like nothing was moving forward. The noise of the world told him to give up, that it was no longer worth continuing. But deep within him, a soft, almost whispering voice reminded him, "Trust. You are not alone. There is something bigger at work in all of this." Faith isn't necessarily a religious belief. It's the inner certainty that life has a purpose, even when we don't understand what's happening. It's believing that every step has meaning, even when we're passing through shadows. It's trusting that there's a greater force, call it God, the universe, love, energy, that doesn't abandon us. And it's not about sitting back and waiting for miracles. True faith goes hand in hand with action. It's that daily decision to give your best, even without seeing immediate results. It's about continuing to sow, even when you can't see the harvest. It's saying, I'm going to keep going because I trust that something valuable will come out of this. The protagonist began to live like this. He no longer needed to understand all the whys because he began to focus on the what for. And in that change, he found peace. He understood that not everything depended on his strength, that there are times to act and times to let go. And when he finally let go, the answers began to arrive. Not magically, but at the right moment, often through people, other times in the form of new opportunities, and, in many cases, as an inner calm that's difficult to explain. Faith is that light that burns in the fog. It's believing that your story isn't over, that today's chapter doesn't define your final destiny, that the best may be yet to come. And if today you feel like you're about to give up, pause, breathe, look up, and also inward, and tell yourself, I don't have all the answers, but I trust there's a purpose in this. Because when strength runs out, that's when faith begins to work. Prepare yourself, because what's coming is the most transformative part of this story. Because everything you've experienced, everything you've felt, everything you've learned becomes a powerful truth that can change your life every day. Today is the day to make your life count. The protagonist has traveled a path full of lessons. He has stumbled, doubted, fallen, and gotten back up. And he realized, looking back, that it wasn't one great event that transformed his life, but rather a series of daily decisions. Because life doesn't change in a single stroke. Life is transformed when you decide to live it differently, starting today. It's easy to let the future trap us with promises. When I have more time, I'll be more present. When I have more money, I'll help more. When I feel better, I'll enjoy myself more. But that, when often never comes. And while we wait for it, we let slip the only thing we truly possess, the now. The protagonist understood that true power lies not in what happened or what will happen next, but in what you decide to do today. And that applies to you too. Today you can choose to forgive. Today you can call someone and tell them how much you value them. Today you can begin what you've been putting off. You can take care of your health, your spirit, your environment. You can inspire, serve, and grow. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to remember that your life has immense value, and that every day you are given is an opportunity to make a difference for yourself and for others. When you choose to live with intention, with gratitude, and with love, everything transforms. Your energy shifts. Your relationships flourish. Your way of working is renewed. Your way of seeing the world is filled with light. You begin to walk lighter, more awake, more connected to what truly matters. And the most beautiful thing of all is that it's not about accomplishing great deeds. It's about living with greatness in the everyday. Choosing to make your day count, even if no one sees it, even if it's just for you. The protagonist understood, deep down, that there are no small days when you live with purpose, that there are no worthless acts when they are done with love, that there is no meaningless life when you walk with faith. And so this story concludes, not with a perfect ending, but with a clear and courageous decision. Every day that is given to me, I will live it as if it really matters. Because it matters. And you, who have come this far, are you ready to live like this? Are you willing to make your day count? Because this story may be over, but yours is just beginning.